an overwhelming majority of higher level reviews agree with the denial, right? So it's confirmed, continued is what you'll see. And there's a reason for that. It goes back to your evidence. Did you submit your evidence with this claim? Because in a higher level review, they can only review your evidence. There's different types of higher level reviews. You can just do, say, hey, VA, can someone else look at this, right? I never recommend that one. I always recommend a higher level review with an informal conference. All that means is some rater in a very common tone, like we're speaking, is going to pick up their phone, dial your number, and say, hey, let's talk about migraines. That gives you an opportunity to say, hey, you know, hey, VA rater, whoever, I submitted a higher level review. I got 0% for migraines. I know I have, like, I was prescribed sumatriptan by VA primary care. I've re-upped my prescription 3 times. That clearly shows I have, you know, 3 migraines per month. That is hard medical evidence. And the rate will be like, you're right, you know? Essentially did their job for them. And on the spot, this is what I love about higher level reviews. On the spot, if you have the evidence, they can change that from a 0 to a 50 or 30, like that. Okay. They have the power to do that. Now, let's talk about the opposite. You don't have the evidence, right? You submit a higher level review with an informal conference. The VA is looking at the evidence that you don't have, and they're like, hey, talk to me about migraines. And you say, oh, well, you know, I get migraines 2-3 times a month. Again, that self-report, it's valid. I'm not invalidating, you know, or reports, but it's very low. And the rater will be like, hey, based on this evidence, you know, this is the decision that we are legally required to make. It would be wrong if the rater gave you that decision, right? So it all comes back down to one thing every single time: it's evidence. So that's higher level reviews for disagreements and informal conferences, but you also have supplemental appeals. If you want to go ahead and take that one.
Sure. So real quick on the higher level reviews, I love that you mentioned the request and informal conference. So that's 16 alpha in the form. It's just one little spot there that you got to make sure that you say that you want to have one. It's on the same form. It's not a new form. It's not a different form. It's the same form either way, but always ask for that informal conference, because it allows you, like Clay was saying, to really dive in and point out why you should be at whatever you should be at. And it just helps them to find it quicker, because if you don't, then they have to just guess, and they're flipping through and they're trying to find it with another stack behind them. So this helps you to guide them right to where you want them to look at the evidence that was supplied already. Now, supplemental claim is different. Supplemental claim is essentially, if you watch this whole video, we talked about filing that claim even when you didn't have the evidence, knowing that most likely you were going to get denied. A supplemental claim allows you to provide more evidence. Now, that evidence could be just you writing a letter explaining something, right? It could be go to the doctor one more time. It could be go get a prescription for something. It could be a multitude of things. New evidence that the VA does not already have. So with that helps you to really get that whole claim kind of evaluated with that new evidence in light. Now, if kind of going back to what Clay said, a lot of times with the higher level reviews, they're gonna hold their original decision. Doesn't mean they don't ever change their mind, because they do, if you can point it out. And again, this goes back to what we're saying. If you take the time, you put in that intent to file, you develop your claim, you're doing all the things right, you're reading the schedule of ratings, you're providing them a DBQ with everything written in it, you go to the CMP exam armed with the information from the schedule of ratings, and you're regurgitating all the information because you have GERD, and you're getting it all in there, you should know exactly what you should be rated. And so if you get something lower, you're going to come back and combat it because you know it's in there somewhere. They missed it. So that's the higher level review. But if you didn't do all of those things, you might be in a position to where you have to give them more information. Again, back to if you didn't provide any documentation for evidence because you didn't have it at the time, or you just supplied what you thought you needed, and maybe the nexus wasn't there. That would be a common thing, right? I would say that's probably the biggest reason for a denial. Would be the nexus, right? So. And then it would be diagnosis, people just filing claims just because, I have this, and they file a claim, right? So then you got to back it up with all the evidence because you get denied. So it gives you that opportunity to rectify whatever the reason for the denial was with additional evidence. So whether it's documenting the nexus, whether it's documenting the actual diagnosis, or whether it's the severity of the condition to warrant a higher rating, it gives you that opportunity to combat that, get the evidence you need to support your position, and provide that to the VA under that supplemental claim. Now, supplemental claim is form 200995, and then the higher level review is the 0996. I don't know, it's weird. It's backwards to me because I think that the lower number should be the least one, which is the higher level review, and the higher number should be, but whatever. So it's backwards. So supplemental claim 20-0995, and the higher level is 20-0996. Now, let's say that we crap down on both of those. VA still disagrees. They're still holding to their belief that we are supposed to be whatever they're telling us we are. But we disagree. What's our next option, Clay?
Yeah, so it's the board, right? And there are many, many, many opinions on the board. I'll give you mine. This is the last ditch effort, okay? It is definitely the last resort. There hasn't been a single time where I look at a denial and like, hey, go to the board, right? It's always HLR supplemental, right? I would even probably do 2 supplementals before I recommend the board. Obviously, it's situation dependent, right? But the board is literally a court case, right? A judge is going to sit on that, and they're using 38 CFR as the basis criteria, and you are arguing VA policy and regulation. That is really when you want to start considering an attorney at that point. Again, my opinion, can you use attorneys the whole way through? Sure, right? But if you're at the board, a good analogy is if you're a divorce lawyer, when you get a divorce, you still hire a divorce lawyer, right? Lawyers get lawyers.
Right.
That should tell you something.
Right.
And so you're going in front of the judge. They're looking at all of your evidence, right? It's medical literature, studies. If you provided an independent medical opinion or a nexus letter, they're going to look at that. They're going to weigh that opinion versus a CMP examiner's opinion. All of these things come into play, and that is going to take years, right? Timelines aren't something that we really know. HLRs are generally faster, right? Until it gets put back into the standard claim process. Supplemental claims are generally, right, the same as a standard claim, generally. But the board, no less than 1 year, probably multiple, right?
Yeah.
That's my take on it. It's really a last ditch effort, like the VA made a mistake and you're arguing their mistake. That's really what the board is for.
Right.
But there's tons of opinions on it if you want to give yours.